Hi everyone, welcome to NCKHUB. Today in this video we are going to cover Spring Security. So what is Spring Security and its architecture? So Spring Security acts as a guardian for web applications. It oversees who can access your site, verify user identities, and enforces some rules to safeguard your data from unauthorized access. So we'll see the architecture and what are the different components present in the architecture and how those work together to keep the application safe. Yeah, so this is the architecture of Spring Security. So here, once we make any request from our web, so incoming HTTP request will be sent, and then within this we have security filters like from it can have any number of security filters. So this security filter is the main backbone of Spring Security. It contains a series of filters that process HTTP requests and communicates with the authentication manager for validation of requests. So these filters going to work together to make sure that web application is secure and responsibilities for different tasks like authentication, authorization, session management, etc. So there are some default filters present in this security filter like channel processing filter, so which can handles the protocols like such as HTTP or HTTPS, and security context persistent filter ensures that user authentication details persist during the session, and also username password authentication filter, so which checks the provided credentials and creates an authentication object. So there is also like concurrent session filter, so which manages which control how many sessions can user have, and handle scenarios when user exceeds the limit. So there is also like logout filter, so intercepts the logout request and terminates the user session. And also there is remember me authentication filter, whoever user tries to authenticate and that user session will be remembered, and even after logout. And also anonymous authentication filter, so which is responsible for creating an anonymous user who is not authenticated, and it can perform or it can allow access to only few parts of the application. And there is also a session management filter, which handles the invalidating the sessions and other session related tasks. So there is exceptional translator filter, what should be the request goes when any exception occurs. So whenever exception occurs, to translate that exception into an unauthenticated response, so this filter is going to handle this. And then also filter security interceptor, ensures that the user whoever tries to log in have necessary rules and permission to access the specific resources of the application. Yeah, so I will show example what security filter does. And second component is like authentication manager. So it is act like a central component that verifies the user identities, like whatever, suppose in the web form, if we enter the credentials, so it is going to verify the user identities, and it is going to coordinate with the authentication process, and delegates the authentication to this authentication provider component. So if we have any complex system, we can have a multiple authentication manager. So each authentication manager uh, associated with different set of authentication providers, so to handle the different types of authentication for different parts of application. So next component is the authentication provider. Yeah, so this authentication provider is the we can say it is a worker of the authentication manager. So which is actually responsible for authentication. So here it is going to see like it's already validated the credentials, and then whether we need to provide the authentication or not, so that will be taken care here. So this Spring Security supports different type of authentication providers like DAO authentication provider, so which is going to use a user details service to retrieve the user details from the database and compare credentials whatever we entered on the web form. So we can say there is also a LDAP authentication provider used for authenticating users against the LDAP server. So if any LDAP user is trying to authenticate, like it will be valid, we can use the LDAP authentication provider to validate that authentication. So there is also like a JWT authentication provider used for validating the JWT tokens of the user. And yeah, apart from these three, like we can also implement the custom authentication provider with specific logic. Yeah, so next component is the user detail service. So it is an interface like which retrieves user details from database. So this user details interface, like retrieve user details from the database, and basically it is used in conjunction with this authentication provider. So to obtain the details from the database. And we have another component, password encoder. So yeah, password encoder like is used to hash the and verify the password securely. As storing and comparing password is very crucial for authentication. So there are different types of password and encoders, so which Spring Security supports. So first one is like a bcrypt password encoder. So it is the widely recommended choice whenever we are trying to uh, authenticate the user. Okay, so yeah, so basically this bcrypt and password encoder, like it is going to securely hash the passwords, and then it handles like generating random salts for each password. So there is another encoder, no op password encoder. So this encoder does not perform any hashing or encoding of password. So it's going to store the password like in simple plain text. So which makes them highly vulnerable. And there is a standard password encoder. So this encoder like uses one-way hashing. So algorithm, so which is less secure. And so there is another password encoder, message digest. So this encoder like uses a specific message digest algorithms like SHA-256, and we have other algorithms also, so to hash these passwords. So it is more secure than plain text, but not as strong as first one, bcrypt password encoder. So there is another password encoder, a script password encoder. So this script is like another secure password hashing algorithm, so which is similar to bcrypt. So it is like designed to be memory intensive, so making it resistant to certain types of attacks. So yeah, a script password encoder is also a good choice for securing the password hashing. So there is another component, security context holder. Yeah, so what does this security context holder like? It is this class like manages the user's security context throughout the this request and response life cycle. So whenever this request comes and whole this process completes, and it returns the response. So during this process, that user security context will be maintained by this security context holder, and then it is also stores the information about the currently authenticated users, such as roles and other security related data. So once the user is successfully authenticated, Spring Security is going to create an authentication object within this security context, managed by the security context holder. So there is another principal, so which is going to represent the current users username, authorities, and other some user related specific data. Yeah, so now we'll see a simple example how Spring Boot is uh, Spring Boot integrates Spring Security for the web application. Yeah. This is the sample Spring Boot project created for the demo. So here I use the dependencies Spring Boot starter security, and then there is a I'm using Timeleaf for showing some UI templates like for login page and logout, all these things, and I'm adding the dependency Spring Boot starter web, and yeah, there is a test framework Spring Boot starter test. So these are the main dependencies security and the Timeleaf and web starter web. Yeah, so we'll see the main class. So first I will show the templates, UI templates, what are the templates I have used. So we can just go to the resources and templates. So here I created four templates login template, HTML page. So where I'm creating one simple form with username and password text boxes for entering the username and password entry, and there is a simple submit button. So on submit, it is going to transfer my request whether those credentials are valid or not. If those are not valid, I'm showing this error message like invalid username and password. And if there is no error, if we are logging out from once we successfully log in, so we'll be showing this logged out message. And this is the home page. So once my login is successful, I'm going to show some simple message like welcome home page. So I'm just showing another text message like click to see a greeting message. So here I'm mapping this hello, so that it will be going to this hello HTML page. So if my user is successfully logged in, and if he has some specific roles, then he can able to see this page like with some message hello user. And yeah, so here I'm providing some button like to sign out. Yeah, and there is also a logout page. So with title logout and logout with this logout things. Okay. So for this, I have created one this one. So once you created Spring Boot application, so this is the default class. It will generate with our project Spring Security Demo 2, and this is the main class. So here I'm creating my config and web security configuration. So in this my config, I'm implementing this web MVC configurer. So this is the interface class. I am implementing this, and then here I am just setting the views. If I just once I start my Spring Boot application, so I will provide the URL, and then if I didn't mention anything, so it is going to default show the home page. Okay, so home page in the sense with username, this thing, sorry. So with this message, login. Okay. Yeah, yeah, I'm going to add the controller with the slash login. So it is going to, I'm going setting the view name as login. So default it takes me to the login HTML page. So which asks the user to enter the details, and with logout mapping, so I'm setting the view name as logout page, and with hello I am setting the view as hello, and then if nothing is mentioned, so set view is like home page, and even if you mention home, so it is going to set the view home. Yeah, yeah, here is the Spring security logic. So whatever the components we discussed in the architecture, so those things we are going to use here. So yeah, so first we need to use the annotation enable web security. So this annotation defines like our application is configured with Spring security. So this is the annotation we need to use it. So this is the enable method security. So this secured enabled, pre-post enabled, and JSR 250 enabled. So this is another annotation, and here I am using the password encryptor like bcrypt password encryptor. So this is the most used one, and so here I am using the security filter chain. So this is a simple one. So how do I authorize my HTTP requests? Yeah, sorry. So once this security filter chain, so how I am authorizing, so http dot authorize http request. So whenever the request is matching with logout, so I'm going to permit all those things. So another like whenever we get the mapping controller like home page, so need to check whether that user has this role or not. Okay, has role user. So I'm checking for accessing this page, so the user should has this role. And another mapping like hello, so this user should have the admin role to perform this. So if any request come with this, so I am allowing the authenticated. I'm making sure that user is authenticated, and yeah, this is from the form login. I am trying to provide this login page, so which makes all users like whoever try to access, so they will get the login page default, so which doesn't require any other roles. And similarly for logout, so logout also I am permitting for everyone, so I'm not making any roles check. So as I already mentioned, like in security filter, like there is a remember b uh, security filter, so we can make use of this, or we can ignore it. And I'm making like CSRF, so I'm making it disabled, and I'm mentioning like HTTP with basic authentication, customizer with defaults, and then I am building the HTTP request. Yeah, another component, so user details interface. So and here I am creating the user with username and password. So yeah, with this encoder I am encrypting my password with bkeep password encoder, and I am assigning the role admin to the user one, and then building it. So yeah, so this method like is going to create the user one and user two. So user two I am giving the role as user. So now we will start. So return new in-memory details manager. So once our application, Spring Boot application is started, like it is going to create the user one and user two. So if we try to log in, so it is going to see whether it is going to authenticated or not. So now we'll start the Spring Boot application. Yeah, so we can see, so Spring Boot application is started, and now we'll open any browser. So localhost. Yeah, so now it is showing that login HTML pages. So I created two users, user 1 and user 2. Suppose I give something which is not there. So I'm giving user as ABC and different. So if I new, so it is saying invalid username and password. So now I'll try to log in with user 1 and password 123456 and then sign in. So it took me to the next page, home page. So it is asking like click here to see a greeting. So this is my login page. So I have provided the username and password and then click submit. So this is my action slash login. So on slash login, so it is setting me the view as login, and then it took me to the home page. Okay, now if I click here, okay, now I'll open this home page. So it is showing me this welcome home page, and click here to see the greeting. So on click of this, it is taking me to the slash hello component. So which is going to show me this page hello.html. So yeah, now you can see hello, and it is showing hello user one. So this is my hello message, and this is my authentication is successful, and it is showing me the user one. Okay, and we can also see there is a sign out labeling button. Okay, submit. So now I just click on this sign out. So again it came to the login page with this you have been logged out, so username and password. Now I have trying to log in with another user 2, password 123456. So here also it is showing me click here to see the greeting message. But here for user 2 I am just providing the role as user. So this is not an admin. So this user, so you can see this hello, it is expecting a role of admin. Okay. So now if I try to click here, so it doesn't take me to the hello, but it is like forbidden. So it is not allowing me to see that hello HTML component. So this is how with simple security example, so we can work on it. Yeah, so in component like we have already seen, we can also restrict this calls to the method level. Okay, so just closing it. Yeah, so for example, so I created one model class employee, so which has these names: id, name, department, gender, and DOB, and other getter setter methods. Okay, and then I am creating one controller class. Okay, so within this controller class, so yeah, I am just retrieving get mapping. So I'm just trying to get all the employees list, and once I get, I'm returning the response entity as okay to display this employee information in JSON file. So yeah, if I want to get the specific detail of an employee, so I am passing that employee ID so that I will get the details of that particular employee. So in case employee details are not found, so I'm just catching the exception employee not found exception. So I'm entering returning the response entity like not found field. Yeah, so if I want to create an employee, like I'm using this post mapping and then sending these certain uh, creating the employee object and then getting the ID and then returning the entity like employees created. And if we want to update like any employee, so I'm just using this put mapping annotation and then updating and getting the input like parameter as employee object, and then if anything required I'm updating the employee. So if I want to delete the employee from the list, so I'm using this delete mapping annotation and then calling this employee service deleted. So now we'll see what is there in the employee service. So yeah, this is my service component. So I have only 5 things. So find all, which is going to get all the employees details, and then find by id, so which is going to get only particular employee, and then this create method like it has ability to add the new employee details to the list, and then delete, so it is going to delete the particular employee based on the id. So this is like update the employee details. So this is my implementation. So I'm just auto wiring the repository class. Okay, so here I'm using the annotation pre-authorize. Like whatever the user I'm trying to log in, so providing the user details, that user should has a role of admin, then only he can see the employee details. If the logged user doesn't have this role, then this operation is not permitted. So we'll see how it was. And similarly for find by id, so I didn't put any pre-authorized annotation, so it will work for every user. So similarly create also employee, so it can work for all the users. And for delete, so it should have a role of admin, then only user can delete it. And similarly for update, so user can have either user role or admin role to perform the update operation. Yeah, so this is my DAO layer, so employee repository. So these are the calls. So yeah, we can use the database, or I'm just simply using this array list to add the employee details. So yeah, new employee details I'm creating in this constructor. Okay, so I'm setting it and then find all, so it is going to return all the employees details. And find by id, so I'm just passing the id, so whatever maps, so it is going to return that employee. So similarly create, I'm going to create all the new employee details. So similarly delete, I'm going to remove that employee. And similarly for update, I'm just going to replace that uh, employee details at that particular id. Yeah, so application is already started, so I will show with the help of postman. Yeah, so this is my base url. So within this I'm just giving this employee path. Okay, you can go to control and see this is my get mapping. So it should return all the employee details. So first, so in the authorization, so I'm providing the basic authorization. Okay, so yeah, username, first I'm trying with user one. Okay, yeah, so here you can see it is returning me the employee details, id1, id2 and id3. So because this user one has admin role. So when we are creating the user, so we are providing the role as admin. So that's the reason now we are seeing the employee details. So similarly, now I'll try to use user 2. Yeah, now you can see user 2 has role of user, so which doesn't permit to get the employee details. So that's the reason it is giving forbidden 403. So here now you can see like for seeing the employee details, like we didn't put any authorization, so it is getting me the details. Okay, so similarly we can see the operations for the uh, create employee, delete employee, and update the employee. Yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you so much.